Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Sam, and now that we are in October, it is time to do my September monthly wrap up. And I don't know what happened in September, but I ended up reading 17 books. I don't know how that happened. So I feel like this is going to be a long one. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's chat about all the books that I read in September. Starting out the month, I read Electric Idol by Katie Robert. This is book 2 in the Dark Olympus series. And I ended up rating this 3 stars. I thought this was pretty good. In this one, we're following, it's kind of a retelling of a bunch of classic Greek myths. So this one follows Psyche and Eros. And essentially, in this one, our two main characters are caught in a questionable position, and it gets blasted all over their social media, and their parents are both kind of at odds with each other. And Eros is Aphrodite's son and also kind of her hitman. Like, he'll go out and do all the bad crimes that she needs. It kind of goes from there. I feel like I really forgot what happened in book 1, Neon Gods, but I was able to remember and catch up pretty quickly. This is like a modern day take on the Greek myths. All of the classic gods are leaders of this city, and they're set up very similar to Olympus. There was great plus size rep in this, and our female main character, Psyche, was very much an influencer, so that was kind of an interesting take that I haven't really seen in books before, and I really liked that aspect of it. I did really enjoy our characters together, but I feel like there wasn't enough backstory. I feel like they should have had some sort of history together, and they really didn't. And I do feel like the relationship ended up being very physical for that reason. I did feel their connection, and I liked the characters both individually and as a couple. There was just not enough going on. I guess the plot definitely took a backseat to the physical relationship. Next, I read Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young, and I ended up rating this 5 stars. This just really spoke to me in some way. In this one, we're following Sarah and Caleb, who we meet in Out on a Limb, and they are high school sweethearts. They've been together for, I think, 16 years. They're now in their 30s, and they're just, specifically Sarah is kind of struggling to figure out who she is, who she wants to be, and where she wants kind of the rest of her life to go. And so they end up going to this like wilderness relationship camp and learn a lot about themselves and each other. And I think it was just a really beautiful story. I don't think this is necessarily a marriage in peril or anything, but it's just a story about finding yourself, rekindling that love for each other. Even though you could tell just how much these characters loved and cared about each other, there's just something about finding that, I guess, spark and connection again, breaking out of the monotony of the day to day and just, yeah, reconnecting. I just thought it was so sweet, and it really resonated with me in sort of the feelings that I've been feeling recently. It just kind of found its way into my heart and just buried itself there. I just absolutely loved this book so much. I don't think that you need to read Out on a Limb first, but I think that it is beneficial because you see both of these characters interacting in that book, and you kind of get that outside experience about them and a bit more of their backstory with their relationship to some of those characters. So I think it is beneficial to read it first, but you definitely don't have to. I also cried like 3 or 4 times within the first like 100 pages of this book. So it definitely just spoke to me on another level. Next, I ended up listening to Spare by Prince Harry on audio. I ended up really enjoying this book. I ended up rating it 4 stars. I think that Prince Harry did a really good job narrating the story. I always love listening to biographies or memoirs and having the actual person the book is about narrate the story or narrate their book. I feel like it makes it a lot more impactful. This is a very heavy read, very much filled with grief, but also glimpses of hope And I don't know, it just felt very insightful to me. I have a minor in history, and like pre 1900s, specifically British or like UK history is very interesting to me. I feel like there's just a lot of history in that area. And so this really just kind of reignited that for me. And I feel like this was a very human story and had some elements that you could really relate to, even though you're not on like the same social standing as Prince Harry. I don't know, I just found it very interesting, and I'm really glad that I finally picked up this book and listened to it. Obviously, I don't know, I have a very weird relationship with reading memoirs. I know that a lot of people don't like reading memoirs, but I feel like a lot of times people pick up books based on ratings, and I personally rate memoirs specifically based on like the structure and flow of the story, definitely not the content by any means. I really enjoyed this one. If you haven't picked this one up yet, I would recommend it. I think it was a very interesting listen. Next, I ended up picking up and reading One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I ended up rating this 4.5 stars. I feel like I really need to refocus and read the rest of her backlist. I have really enjoyed almost everything that I have read by her, and this was no exception. I definitely heard about the plot of this book way back when and definitely forgot until I was in that first few chapters. This book starts out where our female main character is at dinner with her family and her fiance for her dad's birthday when she gets a call from her husband, who she thought has been dead for 2.5 years, I think, when he was supposed to have died in a helicopter accident. And then we go back in time to when they all met and sort of glimpses of the story of her life leading up to this time. And I feel like, again, it was just a very beautiful story about love and life and grief and sort of just living after something like that and trying to find love and hope again. I feel like the plot was very grandiose, but also something that a lot of people might be able to relate to in the way that you make these decisions for your life, and potentially life just doesn't pan out the way that you expect or think it will. I just, again, resonated with a lot of the little themes in this book, and I thought it was a very, very beautiful story, and I'm so glad that I picked this one up. Next, I read Lady of Ashes by Melissa K. Rorick. I ended up rating this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this one, although at this point I can't remember exactly what happened in this one. This is the continuation of the Lady of Darkness series. In this one, we get a lot more pain, there's a lot of secrets, but we are starting to get some reveals and some information. We're getting a lot more relationships formed in this one that I really enjoyed. I love the character dynamics of all of our different characters and seeing these dynamics in the different POVs that we get. There is a, I guess, trope in this series that really bothers me, and it has to do with actually seeing people's powers. I always want to see people's powers growing and forming, and when we kind of just get dropped these big reveals of these huge manifestation of their powers, we don't actually see them building, it's so frustrating. And the ending was also crazy, but I also feel like it kind of came out of nowhere. I'm having a very weird relationship with this book. I feel like one book is really good and then the next book flops, and then it starts to pick up again, and then the next book flops. I'm a little surprise spoiler for October's wrap up. I'm reading the next book currently, and it's definitely not going well again. And I don't know, I'm having a very difficult time with this series. I wanted to love it so much more than I have been. I did definitely enjoy this third book, but it's hard to remember all the good things when I'm kind of in the middle of not enjoying the next one. This was a good one. Next, I picked up another audiobook, and that was Caught Up by Navessa Allen. This is the second book in her series. I don't remember what it's called, but in this one, we are following the cousin to our female main character in Lights Out. And this one has like sex worker kink positivity rep, which was really interesting to read, or I guess listen to about. This is also narrated by Teddy Hamilton, and I get the hype now. I just wanted to point that out. This is understandably very sex and smut focused, and I don't know, I feel like the way that it was handled, like we got very descriptive scenes within this sex club between other people, that it felt, I don't know, the tension between our main characters wasn't as great, or like when they do actually finally get together, it wasn't as impactful because we already got this very smutty scene already. So I don't know, I feel like the dynamic was just a little bit strange for me. I did really enjoy the characters together and the plot and that aspect of it, but I do feel like the plot kind of took a back seat and was definitely not the main focus by any means. There's mafia elements to this book, and like I said, it was fun, but it just wasn't anything great. So it was a 3.5 star for me. That's really all I have to say about this one. Next book I picked up was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore, and I ended up rating this 3 stars. I thought this was cute and fun, but definitely nothing special. In this one, we are following Jeannie. Yes, I always get her name wrong, who takes over her aunt's coffee shop in this small town, Dream Harbor. And there's some questionable things going on that she's trying to figure out, what's happening to the coffee shop. And she meets Logan kind of in a funny way. He's supposed to be this big, burly, grumpy farmer, but I feel like the tone was very weird. He comes off as like very shy and nerdy and just not really this big, burly farmer male main character, if that makes sense. The story was sweet, but it was definitely very stereotypical, cheesy, a bit cringy. And also the relationship was a bit lust based. And I feel like our characters didn't have a ton of interactions, and yet they were like obsessed with each other. I don't know. I thought it was cute and it was like a good introduction to the small town. And I feel like the books are just going to get better. But it was definitely nothing to write home about, at least for me. I thought it was cute and fun, very quick read, but just nothing super special. Next, I read Mitosis by Brandon Sanderson. This is the novella that comes after Steelheart in the Reckoner series. This is a sci-fi dystopian YA series of his, where there are these superheroes or people that have these powers, but they are the bad guys, and the Reckoners are a group that are trying to take down these superheroes, which they call epics. And so this was just a short story that gives a bit of more background into this world, and I guess the epics, they're really just trying to kill this one specific epic. There's not a ton to the story. I have started reading the second book in this series, and there are definitely nods to this novella, so I'm glad that I did read it first and like I have that background. But as of finishing Mitosis, I don't know how much it actually added to the series, but it was nice to get a little story before jumping into book 2, because it has been a little while since I read book 1. So it's a nice partial refresher. Next, I listened to Pumpkin to Talk About by Ali Samberts. This is a novella that's like a Halloween inspired story. In this one, we're following Belle and Mike has come back to his small town, I think, to help out his sister, who recently separated from her husband, and just try and help her get back on her feet. And Belle is this girl that he knew in college. They had a bit of, or knew in high school, and they had a bit of a history. This was cute. Honestly, it was kind of cringy. It was like kind of a sweet audiobook just to get into the Halloween spirit. A bit silly, and I feel like there was decent communication, and I did really enjoy like the family relationships, but I didn't love our main characters together. Next, I read One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I have a whole reading blog about this book, and I ended up rating this 2.5 stars. This unfortunately did not work for me at all. I feel like objectively this would be a good book. In this one, we're following our female main character who recently moved to New York to continue her bachelor's degree, and she meets this group of people and moved in with them when she sees this girl on the train, and there's something that's not quite right about her, and she's trying to help figure out what is going on while also trying to find a place for herself. And so objectively, I really enjoy the plot. There is also, I think every single character in this book is LGBTQ plus in some way, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But I feel like this book was unnecessarily long, and there was a lot of details that were not really relevant. And there was also like 3 or 4 different plot threads that all kind of converged, but just felt a little disorganized or something. I don't know. I just, unfortunately, this did not work for me. I just didn't really enjoy either of our main characters or really felt the connection between them. So unfortunately, this one just did not quite work for me. Next, I read Desecrated Saints by J. Rose. This is the third and final book in the Blackwood Institute series. And unfortunately, again, this one did not work for me. I ended up rating this 2 stars. I feel like this was so dark and just unnecessary trauma dumping on our characters. I feel like in the situation they're in, they need some hope. They need some help to try to pull them out of this dark place that they have been in for so long. And I just did not feel like we got that at all. And I feel like none of our characters really were there to help each other. They were really just awful to each other. In this one, all of our main characters are dealing with some form of mental illness and have a criminal history because of this mental illness, and are in what is supposed to be like a psych ward, I think, or like a rehabilitation psych center. But there's some questionable things going on. And so in this last book, we're seeing them try to get out of this situation. And with the way that book 2 ended, I thought there was going to be a lot more actually happening, but I feel like this was a lot of waiting around. And when something finally did seem to start to happen, the chapter cut off and there was a time jump, and we never actually got to see them doing anything to try to help their situation. And so I feel like we were missing what could potentially have been important information. I do enjoy the way that this ended. I thought it was sweet and definitely a positive ending to this series, but overall, the book as a whole was not for me. Book number 12 is Wild Side by Elsie Silver. I ended up rating this 4 stars. In this one, we are following Tabitha, who loses her sister and has an interesting relationship with her sister's old neighbor. And I don't want to give like too much away because we sort of get these pieces in the second book and then obviously through this book as well. And I do really like their connection. I think they were really good together, really sweet. I really loved the relationship with her nephew and sort of her family and all of the friendships that we get to see through this. Reese is also a professional like wrestler, and I really enjoyed that dynamic. I thought that was very interesting. But I don't know, there was just something about this book that seemed missing to me. Banter, as always, was great. Like on paper, there was nothing wrong with it. There was just something missing. And I just don't know what that is. Almost at the end, just 5 more books to go. Next, I ended up listening to Room for Two by Lana Ferguson. This is a like Spotify exclusive novella story, and I ended up rating this 3 stars. I thought this was cute, but again, it wasn't anything special. In this one, our 2 main characters have sort of a miscommunication on why they are going to this meeting, I guess, and essentially their friends set them up. And majority of this story is just them spending the day together. And I think it was really cute and funny at the beginning, but it started to get kind of cringy. And I do think it was sweet, but it was also, again, just nothing special. It was kind of just silly and a fun listen. That's kind of all I have to say about that one. Next, I read A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I thought this was so cute. It was so whimsical and I rated it 4 stars. I had a great time reading this. It was just the perfect, cozy, whimsy, hopeful story. This book begins where our main character is 16, 12, 15, something like that. She's very young and she resurrects her aunt and ends up losing almost all of her magic. And there's this really cute magical inn and just a assortment of like random people living at this inn. And it's just very much found family, very cute, just being there for each other. There's some silly magical animals without giving much away. And it just felt like a story about friendship and, like I said, found family. So cute. There is a romance in this, which I feel came kind of out of nowhere. Like the actual love confession kind of came out of nowhere. But yeah, I thought this was really cute. Again, there is a trope in here that is like one of my least favorite tropes that comes at the end of like some magical books. Yeah, so I think that took the rating down a bit for me. But overall, this was so, so cute. I enjoyed book 1, but I definitely enjoyed book 2 like way more. It was just the cutest, sweetest, coziest, witchy book, which is exactly what I wanted at that time. Next, I read Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver, and I ended up rating this 3 stars. Once again, I definitely enjoyed this one more than book 1, but I don't even know if I can really explain the plot of this one. We had a couple different interactions between our 2 main characters at the beginning of this book through a couple different time jumps, and then there is a threat to the life of Lark's family and friends, and that kind of pushes our 2 main characters into a relationship. I just don't feel like there was enough happening. The plot definitely felt like it took a back seat, and I also couldn't pinpoint exactly what that plot was. I feel like there was some like backstory that maybe was introduced in book 1, but I just forgot about it and that wasn't really explained in this book until sort of at the very end. And yeah, I think mostly I just felt pretty confused about the characters, about the plot, about what was supposed to actually be going on. And so I feel like nothing was really happening, but I also enjoyed them together. Like their interactions were funny. I thought they had pretty good banter, but yeah, again, just very graphic, strange side plots that weren't really involved. I don't know. Very confused about this one. Next, I listened to Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer, and I ended up rating this 3 stars. Now, I feel like the narrator decreased my enjoyment of this book. I just don't enjoy the way that it was done. So I guess take this review with a grain of salt. I'm not sure if I would have enjoyed it more had I read it with my eyeballs, but I also feel like I wouldn't have gotten to it if I actually read it. I never really thought that this book was, or the series was really of interest to me until I saw a few people rating it 5 stars recently and decided to give it a shot. I feel like it was very quirky, but in like a cringy way. I was also very confused about what the setting was. It was giving like medieval fantasy world, but also corporate, which the way that things were explained and renamed just made me really, it gave me the ick a bit. I just found it to be a bit ridiculous. I also feel like the villain is made out to be this big, horrible, awful guy in the beginning, especially, but we never got to see that. Again, there was quite a few time jumps at the beginning of this book where our main character, Evie, gets hired on to be the villain's assistant, and then we jump forward a couple months and she's like in it and she's doing a great job. But I feel like having those first few weeks or first couple days at least, especially, would definitely have improved the relationship dynamic and gave a better understanding of what she was supposed to be doing, what she was experiencing. And yeah, I don't know, the plot just felt a bit all over the place. And I found myself very easily distracted while listening to this. So I am holding out. I think that potentially the next books will get better, maybe I'll get used to the audiobook and the way that it goes. It's just not, I don't know, I think it's more quirky, cringy as opposed to snarky funny, if that makes any sense. And then wrapping out the month, I read Unloved by Peyton Corinne. This is book 2 to Unsteady in the Undone series. I absolutely loved this book. I ended up rating this 5 stars. This does take place during the same timeline as Unsteady. So there were times that something happened in this book where we saw the other side of it in book 1, and I was trying to remember like what was going on in book 1 to figure out kind of where we were in the year and the story. But I love this. The trauma and past that both our characters had were similar, but in completely different situations. They were feeling a lot of the same things, but just had different experiences with it. And the way that they showed up for each other, even just as friends, was so amazingly beautiful and sweet. And this was like a slow burn. They are not together until like the very end. They're very much just friends, but just the connection and, like I said, the way that they showed up for each other was just so beautiful. And yeah, this just pulled at my heart. I absolutely loved our main characters, love them together, and I feel like I related to a lot of the sort of small things in this book again. Absolutely amazing. I thought book 3 was coming out very soon, but it's not coming out until April, and that feels criminal to me. I need it immediately. I need to know what's going on with these characters. That is finally everything that I read in the month of September. I feel like I had very much a mixed bag, but overall a great time reading all of these books. As always, let me know down below if you have read any of these books or what your favorite book that you read in September was. I would love to chat with you. If you would like to find me on any of the other corners of the internet, all of my links are linked down below. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a like so that I know, and I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!